online yourself on how to install Node and NPM on whatever platform you're using. Utilities are platform agnostic, and everything that I'm showing you online yourself platform agnostic.
We have audio.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So ready to get started. Also have just essentially a digest of all the things that I'm going to be doing here. I'll post these, but essentially this is just a digest. This is the Cliff Notes version of what is on this tutorial. So if you want a better explanation, more in depth on how to accomplish what we're going to do today, just go to the this URL here, readthedocs.org. So it's Truffle is a subdomain underneath there. It's truffle.readthedocs.org, and you can go through this tutorial yourself. So this development framework is actually pretty nice. Sorry.
URL I can't see.
Sure. Yeah. Truffle.readthedocs.org. And a simple Google search too, just do Truffle consensus. Sorry. And that'll get you to, looks like, the GitHub version here, but the link is
documentation.
Official Truffle documentation link right there off of that very first search result right there. So that'll take you directly to what we're working off of today. So npm install -g truffle. That's just a command to essentially install this framework onto where you are onto your machine. You would enter this here on your terminal window, and this is what the output looks like here. If you have a successful installation, I had a previous installation of Truffle. Had to uninstall and reinstall it. The error logs told me to do that. So if you don't have a successful installation, just read the error logs. It should tell you what to do. In fact, I had to do it twice. First time, told me an error log, remove this. Second time, tried again, said remove this. Third time, worked. So just make sure you, if you want to try this at home, read the error logs. It'll show you what to do. But this is what a successful Truffle installation looks like. Now, so once we install the actual framework, also just a real quick note here, this requires Node.js 5. If you're installing Node for the first time, you're going to have Node 5 or something greater. Right? Now, you have to interact with an Ethereum node, right? Previous to this test RPC utility that Consensus also released, you would have to install an Ethereum node, run that node, let it sync up to the blockchain. That might take a few hours. The new fast option was released in the client, and that was really handy, especially for people like me who do embedded development on little Raspberry Pis. The I/O on the SD card is not really great, but it was actually a godsend, because before you'd have to sync a node. It would take 5-7 days on the Raspberry Pi. When it finally synced in, you could actually interact with the blockchain on that Raspberry Pi. But the fast sync works. Even faster than that is just this little standalone guy that doesn't even need to go out to the internet. Will emulate Ethereum node. You can run tests on it. You don't have to spend Ethereum to actually test your contract, which is great. So it's economical, and you essentially get to run an emulator of what the Ethereum blockchain would be without spending any coins on testing your applications. And that's really handy. So again, just like we installed Truffle, you can install this little pseudo Ethereum node that you can run, and the Truffle environment will communicate with that node. What you would do to start that after you've installed it is just run this simple command, test RPC. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. So I've installed it already, so if you go up there, test RPC, and you'll see that command here. I'm going to hit enter, and it will roll up, and here we go. So it's showing me that it's listening on port 8545 here on the local machine. It has generated 10 random accounts for you. It's giving you the 10 private keys for it. You would never want to do this. If this were a public node, right? It's because you've just revealed essentially how to access your information. You would need a little more information for that to actually mess with it. But What's great about this is that now I have 10 accounts created for me. There's the private keys, and my node is now listening on port 8545. So again, utility created by consensus. This is great, especially for development environments.
So if we're starting with stupid questions, so that
Bring
did
money,
not,
yeah, all.
that did not require any crypto Ethereum currency.
None. No, so you
I
said.
thought I needed to do that, to kind of buy my way in.
No. You can actually start developing smart contracts, test them, verify them, validate them, run multiple environments against this. So I could run another instance that's trying to contact this. The only difference is I would not be communicating on my local host. I would have to give the IP of the machine. Could set up my own little private network, if you will, of different clients trying to access this internal blockchain, all free of charge. So that's good, because before you'd spend a dime or a quarter, or if you were like me who was bad at this, and you would spend $5-6 trying to debug your application. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it forces you to be a better developer if you have to spend money for
that's
it.
right. A little bit more table jet.
Yes,
sir.
So this is good for development, right? What if I want to test a load, right? If my application can handle the load of maybe like 5,000 users or maybe 50,000 users, how can we do that right now?
I don't know if I can answer that question fully, but what I can show you in this demo is actually the gas usage of this application right now. This little utility here, this guy will actually output what the function is using in terms of gas usage, right? Does everyone understand Ethereum to gas processing power yet? So
we might go over it one more time.
Okay, maybe I would ask you to do, because I think
sure.
you had a much better explanation than I did.
So yeah, so
It was much more
basically
digestible.
there's now we go.
Come on up.
So what we got is we have Ethereum, and Ethereum's cryptocurrency is called Ether. Gas is the unit of computing power that's needed to run the transactions. When I said, like way earlier in this meeting, Ethereum is similar to Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency way, but it has a programming language on there. Well, computation cycles, they cost money. Doing things like stores, adding, subtracting, multiplying, that all costs computation. So how they measure that is in the form of gas. So maybe doing an addition between two integers is 10 gas. I'm just throwing a number out there. Or maybe doing a hashing is 2,000 gas, because it's a lot more computationally intensive to do a SHA-3 hash compared to adding two numbers together. So Ethereum Ether, there's a formula that they do to come up with how much you're paying in Ether for the gas. And that is the gas price the miners are willing to take to process the transaction time. So that's a price. So it's just like a gas price if you're going and getting gas in your car, times the amount of computation. So it'd be like how much gas you want to get gets you the total price in gas of your computation that you're running. That's in the form of Ether, but in units it translates to gas. So that's where the disconnect kind of happens, where you have this, Ether cryptocurrency that's like you can translate it to US dollars, do whatever you want, but then getting it to gas, it's a little more abstract because you're paying for computation time, and computation time is not in the form of Ether because it's a market. It's a market to for the miners to process your transactions. So that constantly changes, and by doing that, they can keep the price of computations relatively low as long as the miners compete and accept lower and lower transactions, or lower and lower mining cost for the computations that you're running on there.
Okay, thanks a lot. Follow-up question on that. So who determines the price? You said there is a market for that. Where is that market? Where can I see that price right now? What's the gas price?
Oh, the gas price. Yeah, so that is on, there's actually a new at stats.net, or what's the one you're at?
ETHstats.net.
Yeah, ETHstats.net. So there is a gas price, and it's 20 Gwei. 20 Gwei is 2/1000th of an ether. I think it's a very small fraction of an ether. So
Okay.
if we convert that to US dollars, I'd say that's probably around 20 cents, but I'm just off the top of my head doing it. Because one Ether right now is worth $11, I think.
So if you were to dedicate like a quad-core PC to being a miner,
Yeah.
how much per day could you generate it if you let that be a miner?
Well, in the early days, a quad-core CPU would generate a good amount, at least for you to be able to
Yeah.
develop on. Not
Yeah.
anything that will make you rich.
Yeah.
People, miners, have switched to GPUs,
Yeah.
right? And then in the Bitcoin world, they went to CPUs
Yeah.
to GPUs to actually
ASICs.
ASICs, right? So you would need something a little more powerful now to
Okay.
do that. But you could use that same miner on the testnet and do a pseudo live demo of your DApp
Yeah.
on the testnet, and you could be a millionaire on the testnet, which is worth nothing in the real
Okay,
world.
or if you wanted enough to generate, if you want to generate enough currency to sort of push your application out onto the Ether, if you dedicated a PC with that over, if you let it run for a week or two,
Mhm.
build you up enough to start.
No, your machine would probably burn up before that
Okay.
happened.
Yeah,
I would highly
you-
suggest a GPU.
Yeah, let's say so you have a GPU.
GPU. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a GPU, you can probably generate one Ether per 2 weeks to a month.
Okay,
On a GPU that's like a,
a 970 or 980.
yeah, 960 to 980
Yeah.
NVIDIA, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So how often, you know, in terms of, would a private enterprise use this and make it totally private, so that the Ether is all generated inside a company,
So-
as opposed to the public? Do you think that's an application that is, you know, potential, or do you see this?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I think you know, there's the public blockchain, right? And then I think there is definitely a lot of different applications for a bridge to go from the public to the private blockchain.
Okay.
And then
Is that called
and I also
sidechain?
think that there's a lucrative opportunity in the ecosystem for someone to just build a bridge and make it and make it really just uniform on what commands to call. How do I get transactions from one chain to the other?
That's a really interesting field that's being actively researched
yeah.
right now.
And definitely look up Vitalik's blog post. You know, Vitalik, you know, I understand probably 50% of the stuff that he actually writes, but so I have to read it a couple times.
I understand.
Yeah, but on public and private blockchains is the title
Okay.
of the blog post, and he talks about different applications for that, and when that's appropriate to do those sort of things. Okay, so moving through the tutorial here, I'm going to, we have a node, albeit private and just local to my machine, but that's good. I'm going to actually, now we need to actually create the project itself, right? So I'm going to make a directory. Is everyone familiar with that concept? I'm going to make a folder on my hard drive. I'm going to call it Dallas Ethereum, okay? And then I'm going to move to that directory. And I just did a directory listing. There is nothing in that directory right now. All right? So let's go to my Finder here. Truffle and Dallas Ethereum. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Does anyone know how to make the Mac Finder window bigger? So anyway, so if you can squint really hard and see, I just made that directory and it's empty now. Okay.
We trust that.
Sure. Zoom.
Yeah, we have Zoom on this camera. I was able to see it was empty.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, Control Zoom works on text and terminal windows, but it doesn't work on the Finder. I'm using it here.
Do you use folders?
Gotta use your fingers,
You know.
Yeah, just
Oh.
Control / zoom. But you may not have that enabled.
Can you pinch it? I
I'll
think that's what
try.
people do on Macs. I don't have one.
So that's on
Okay, well, just take my word for it.
Q?
Nothing in there. I can show you this terminal window, do a directory listing.
no results.
All right. So back to the notes here. I've made the directory, and so nothing too crazy, right? So now I'm gonna use the app. This is the first time I've actually used the Truffle utility, and I'm going to initialize a project, and I'm going to say Truffle init. So Truffle init, and there we go. So that command is completed. now let's go back to the directory. Let's do a directory listing there. And now I have some directories here and a file. I have app, contracts, environments, test, and a file called truffle.js. Okay. If we go back to the, where are you? We go back to the, fine, yeah. So here's a really good breakdown of what these directories are. So app, I'm just reading directly off the tutorials, directory where your application files go by default. Contracts, this is where Truffle expects to find Solidity contracts. Environments, and this is where once you have actually compiled your program, this is where Truffle will place your actual files. And then test, right? So this is great, and this is why I mentioned to you, or at least revealed to you, this audience, that I am work at a software company and I lead developers, because CI, continuous integration, test-driven development, this is big, this is huge for us, right? This was a concept that was completely nebulous, so this is what I compare to mom's basement level development, and then true enterprise development when you're actually releasing apps for banks, enterprise clients, that sort of thing. You want to actually author your tests. If you're doing true test-driven development, you're authoring your test before you're even doing the application coding, right? This is because at the very first get-go, your applications are failing, right? This is just an all development period. Your application fails until it passes the actual test, right? And once it passes the test, then you're done, you move on to the next task, right? And then Truffle.js itself is a configuration file. I won't dive in too much on what you can do in the Truffle.js file itself, but be happy to answer questions, at least for what I know, on what this JavaScript file does. So what's cool about Truffle too is that when you do this initialization, it makes a project for you and actually puts some Solidity contracts in there as examples for you to follow along. This particular example is called MetaCoin. Does anyone remember Gavcoin when they first released Ethereum? So this is essentially that same exact example, and it's a really simple example on what this does. So if I go to contracts, I'm going to show you what's in there. I have convert lib.sol and metacoin.sol. I'm using Sublime Text for this. Let me see if I can open these. Here we go. And everyone see that okay? So Metacoin, I'll get right here. Does everyone know what an import is? Right? I'm importing this other file into my application, and I'm going to use that function, whatever is in that external file, and I'm going to incorporate that into my development. They use this as an example to say, how do I import different application, different contract files into it. So if you ever open up any source code, you're probably going to see about 10 to 100 different import commands just on your main actual development file itself. Here's the contract. So here's our DApp, if you will. And I have a couple of different functions here. I have the ability to send coins, and I have the ability to get the balance in ETH. And I have, looks like, all right, so I can convert, so it looks like two different get balance functions. One is in Ethereum, and then one is the actual balance of that particular address within my particular coin. So I have Ethereum, and then I have my own coin that I've just created on the blockchain itself. So this is a pretty simple contract. If y'all want something even simpler than this, go back to the Blink demo that we did for the Raspberry Pi. That's on our local GitHub. And it's just really simple. It's just a setter and a getter, and then we use what Taylor mentioned before in his talk was the event log mechanism to actually make a Raspberry Pi Blink. Quick note about that. Our application was now included in ETH embedded website, so we're famous. So yay.
Did he actually reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
reached out to me and I was like, oh, talk to him. It's not my code.
No, thanks for that. But yeah, they're really gracious. That's actually a competitor to Slockit, so that's a big deal for us. Or eventually will be a competitor to Slockit. But yeah, but so our Meetup group's source code is included as a as a tutorial, yeah, for the hello world of IoT. Is on ETH embedded. So if you want an even simpler version of a contract, go to our GitHub repository. It's linked on the Meetup website. You can even see something simpler than that. So here's our contract. Really simple. I can send coins. I can get balances, and that's it. So on to the next one. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay. So in here, I have the next step: write some contract code and tests. So this is, you can write whatever contract you want, but we're just using the Metacoin example already included there. So let's compile. Everyone here knows what compile is? You get? Right. And it will do its thing. So it saw the contracts in the directory, in the contracts directory, and it compiled the very first include first, right? Because we gotta compile that before we can include it in the next one. And then it compiled the Metacoin contract. And then it put it into the development environment contracts. So remember going back to our, let's see, this guy here says environments. Directory where built application artifacts are placed, where you can override. This is, it put it into the development environment. There's a production environment, development environment. I think,
So why do they have multiple environments?
So I think that's just a common practice in development, right? So I have my dev environment, and then I have what I consider to be, or I hope is production ready, and I put that in the production environment. That command there, you can actually send a command, I think. Let's see here. No, okay. Well, I can probably find out more about the actual compilation and see how we get something compiled into development. But, okay, so we compiled it. Let's see here. Find configuration. Okay, so this is where it's helpful to have a local node. I am going to deploy my compiled contract onto the blockchain. In this case, local blockchain. If you wanted to spend big money, just go straight to mainnet, right? That's when you would be running a Ethereum node with RPC enabled on your local machine, and that would actually just go straight to the mainnet itself. Let's deploy it, and let's watch this window right here. All right. So I have a contract that's created here. And you'll notice that I actually have 2 contracts created. What 2 contracts were they, you ask?
What are the 2 contracts you created?
Thanks, Hudson. Thanks for asking. that was the 2 different ones that we had. It was the convertlive.sol, Solidity, and metacoin.sol. So I'm assuming this is the contract for Metacoin that would be calling our convert live contract there. And it's giving me the address. This is like a URL, but for the blockchain. Okay.
So that gas usage, so there's a gas usage with like initiating a contract and then also running it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if this were a mainnet node, you would set a default account, and you would hope that that account has some balance of Ethereum, and it would automatically deduct that account the gas cost in Ethereum to deploy that contract. That's a one-time cost to actually put something on the blockchain. What would be great if Consensus is watching this is...
I'm actually messaging Tim right now. So
Really?
Tim Coulter's the creator of this program and Test RPC.
Okay,
And so
good. So he's going to tell me everything that I'm saying wrong. That'd be
exactly.
Good.
I will let him know, tell you everything that.
Yeah, but what would be great if we had an actual output even in a test RPC of what the USD or whatever denomination your
like
truffle.js file had, is saying this would cost current market rates.
Current market rates
A
this
penny.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because that would put more of a real number on it. That's what Parity. So Parity is an Ethereum client that was just released by ETH Core, which they wrote their program in Rust, which is a programming language, and they just put in inside their client the ability to transfer to US dollar and I think pounds and a few other things from their gas and their Ether estimates.
That was a feature they just released last week, right?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
So I hope that starts a trend because people don't really, when you look at gas usage, it's just really hard unless you just are really hardcore into Ethereum development to really put a number on that or to realize, how to write good contracts because you don't know how much is being spent.
Well, yeah, but even if you had a good idea of it, right? I have to translate this gas to, where am I at? Gas cost, and then the market value of Ethereum in whatever denomination I'm or matters to me at that point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be really helpful, or at least let people know. All right, well, this deploying the contracts on the blockchain either would cost you this or did cost you this much money. Okay, so I've deployed my contract. It is on the blockchain now. I have a decentralized application. It cannot be hacked. It is cannot be shut down by the NSA, by someone in a Panamanian law firm. It is ready to go, and I have what was the words that Vitalik used was quantum-proof encryption. Security on my application. So that's a pretty powerful thing.
Asterisk there is actually not quantum proof, but you can make it quantum proof.
You can make it quantum. Yeah. With one more step, right? One more step with the ring signatures, you can make this actually a quantum computing.
Ring signatures or Lamport signatures. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so where am I at? There we go. Okay, so this is, I think, the coolest thing here. Truffle build. So what this is going to do is actually create a front end for my contract. So it's going to create a little tiny web interface for me to actually interact with right now. So I'm going to enter that command, Truffle build, and complete it without errors. Right? See nothing on my node happened there, but let me open up the file here. Let's go back to the Finder. Environment, I'm in development, and I have the build, and here is the web page. This is how I can interact now with the application. So here is that was automatically generated by Truffle, and I'm going to send some amount of my coin that I just created, and you see my balance here in my account. I have 10,000 meta coin. And I'm going to send 1,000 to some random address here. Let's see if I can copy that.
Oh no, that's the waiting text. Yeah, just grab them.
I thought I was able to copy one of those. So I'm just going to send from one account to another that was created in my node here. There we go. All right, now, before I hit enter, I want y'all to watch this window here. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit so you can see my local node and what it does. Okay, so I just sent a transaction, and there is the gas usage for that. I have decremented my account, and I sent it to this address here. Right? My node, or my test RPC node, told me, well, here's the gas usage. And what was great too is that this whole build that did this already had the contract address, the URI for the blockchain URL already built into it, and the transaction loaded is complete. All right, last thing I want to show you is the test, because we're good developers here. We're writing unit tests for everything that we do. Every time I check in something to my repository, my CI is monitoring that repository, and it automatically runs all of these unit tests that I've written before I even started developing, right?
No, you really just write your test in prod, And you tested.
You let your clients test
Yeah,
it.
yeah, you gotta let the users, because who would know better than them?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what this is actually going to do, I'm going to open up this file here for you.
We have a question.
What happens if you don't fully fund your, your contract with gas, and let's say you're away for a couple days, you're empty on gas, and you need to refill it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you could maybe set something up where it does it automatically from a wallet, but what happens to the contract and that during that period where you didn't put enough money toward the ether towards the gas?
So there's, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's two different ways you can set up a contract. One is a self-funded, whereas you go on vacation, you forget about it, you become the most popular thing on the internet. And,
That's what I'm afraid of.
And your yeah, well, that's a good problem to have, though, right? and your contract runs out of money, right? And the second one is a pay-per-usage, whereas the actual person calling the application would have to pay to actually use the contract.
Yeah, so when you have a contract, how I like to explain it generally is that when you first submit it to the blockchain, it gets put there, and it gets, you pay the initial fee to put it on there, and then it's copied to every single node in the network, right? So at that point, you don't have to worry about it. It lays dormant. If someone wants to use it, they pay their own fee to use it. Now, if you want a contract that you put on the network and then runs autonomously at a later time, there isn't a way for a contract to pay for its own gas right now. That's a big issue, and there are workarounds where you could set these external automated services and pay someone else to initiate the contract. But in the future, during the Metropolis milestone or earlier, depending, there's going to be a fix to the network where a contract can pay for its own gas. And that's actually something Taylor Gehring alluded to earlier when he was talking about exciting features coming up, is that eventually a contract will be able to pay for its own gas, which is really powerful because now people can use your contract and you can just self-fund it as much as you want. So, yeah.
Is there a marketplace yet to see who's got what contracts published, or how do you?
Yep, there's a service that Piper Merriam, one of the best Ethereum developers I know, or DApp developers really, he did the Ethereum alarm clock contract, and what that is it's like a wake-up service for your contract where you say, hey, I'm going to pay someone 50 cents to wake up my contract every hour for the next 30 days, or I'm going to pay someone a couple dollars to wake up my contract a year from now. And what that means is you pay them, and then they hold that money in escrow, and then once they wake up the contract and there's verification that they did, they get paid the money.
Were you asking more of a showcase?
Yeah, how do you get the word out?
A Google for dApps.
Yeah, you've written
yeah.
a contract. How do you get the word out that, hey, I've got this neat new contract that you ought to go use? Or
Yeah, Ethercast has a page on that. Have you seen it?
Yeah. So Ethercast has a showcase of different dApps, but yeah, again, massive business opportunity, right? I don't think you can index a blockchain, but I think some sort of marketing platform with which, hey, come check out my application. That
Like
again.
an app store, but it would be a DApp store.
Yep, and that's exactly what it. So Ethereum's making one of those, and so is Consensus.
Okay.
Consensus is another big outside of Ethereum officially organization, and they are making a DApp store. And then there's also, I think there's a third one that's being made as well. That's just outside of those other two.
What's the consensus? Isn't consensus the start of form to build out the ecosystem for
Yes.
Ethereum?
Yep.
So they're making an app store and Ethereum making its own.
I don't know if the DApp stores are together now. I know Ethereum had the idea of making a DApp store. I don't know if it's on their roadmap anymore or if Consensus has completely picked it up. It's kind of nebulous right now. Cool.
Okay, so last step. This is my if y'all are familiar with, yes sir.
What if the transaction fails? In that case, you get.
Sorry.
What happens in a failure of a transaction? Suppose instead of transferring 1,000 points, meta coins, you transfer 11,000 and you have only 10,000. So your contract will fail, right?
Yeah, so that call would fail because the balance is not there, right? You would hope that your contract was authored properly to say send coins, but they actually have a call here that says if balances from the sender is greater sorry, yeah, so
Less
if,
than the amount.
less than the amount, then I cannot do that.
Okay, what about external features, maybe like, the connection broke, or I don't understand how the back-end part of the blockchain is working. Suppose the internet connection was not very good,
Mhm.
right, and the transaction was sent, but it was not in the correct form. And
So,
it
so
fails.
I think you're confusing like TCP/IP, the actual protocol, with the, so if my connection was cut off in the middle of the transaction, that transaction is lost. If the transaction was sent and then my internet connection cuts off, the blockchain picks up that transaction, it executes, and then whenever your node comes back online,
This virtual machine's on everyone's computer.
Mhm.
Everyone is publishing and running the code in the transaction that you send to it. So because everyone's running it, as long as you have a connection long enough to send the transaction out and to get it into the network, then it propagates. It spreads out in a gossip network style.
And one of those that was thoroughly
Yeah,
tested but doesn't
what
actually
is the
work,
part
what
in
is
this
it?
contract?
sorry?
So, the whole thing about unit testing and then it is out there, it's published,
Mhm.
and it's one of those that did not work.
Okay.
What?
So,
Come
so
back.
actually, this question came up in the last meetup. So, all right. Well, I think I'm confusing your question. So, if it was tested, it executes, and it didn't work, then I just don't think it doesn't work, right? Then you probably have to update your contract, right? But you did notice the URIs, right? The contract address, right? So this is where good development starts to come in place, right? Well, if I have some sort of, like in your case, a client sitting on a server and it's expecting that contract to always be at that address, what you want to do is actually have a second contract that actually handles the utility of what you want it to do, and then the first contract is just merely a user. Where I'm saying, okay, yes, this computer, wherever on the internet, can call this contract, but the latest code is at this contract address. So you're still calling just one address the entire time from your client, but at any time, you, the administrator of this contract, can change the address of, say, the utility that actually completes the processes.
I imagine someday that'll be more integrated into Ethereum instead of me having to do all of that.
Yeah, no, yeah. You are here at the ground level, sir.
Yeah.
Like, you're seeing the micro utilities being built and built and built. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, that's sort of an example though, like how do you trust, like in this case, what if you wrote your code where you receive amount, but you only give the receiver half of that amount?
So that's
Yes.
what's good about the blockchain, right?
Yeah.
Is that I can look
Go
at this.
back and see
I can sort of like reverse engineer, if you will.
Yeah.
That's probably being too
Okay.
too fancy a word. I can actually
Yeah.
look at the code on the blockchain. I can audit it, and even the Ethereum organization has a business model where they will stamp of approval, said yes, this contract does what it says it does. So you can actually say, okay, yeah, this was actually reviewed by Ethereum, but you and I could go there with some wherewithal and actually decompile the contract and see if it does what people says it does.
Yeah, if you put something on the blockchain, you can give the code out and say, all right, compile this and compare this with the code I publish on the blockchain, the bytecode, down to the ones and zeros or the hex. If it's the same, that means that the code I'm giving you to review is the code that is published. And if it's on the blockchain, I can't go in and tweak it. I can't go in and tamper with it later, or else it'll be detected.
One other question, how does this scale though, when you said that?
You pay for it.
No, well, here's my question though, it's like you're saying every contract gets distributed to every node.
Mhm.
So a dozen years from now, where there are, each one may have millions of contracts.
Mhm.
Is it the intention that every node, like my PC,
Nope.
okay, so how does it scale up?
So you're going to want to look at sharding and
Okay.
and proof of stake.
Okay.
Essentially,
Explain
it's
that in English. I would love to know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, no.
That's a tough one.
but it's essentially division of labor.
Yeah.
But it's still mathematical proofs to make sure that we still have a complete singular blockchain.
Yeah, I want to try to explain this in like a minute or two, and this is going to be so difficult. This is a challenge. Okay, so for scalability, right now they're doing proof of work, so we have these miners that are processing transactions.
Why is that bad?
That's bad because The proof of work is just mindlessly using GPUs and CPUs and ASICs to figure out these really hard math problems, and that's producing heat that is not helping anything. It's not solving a cure for cancer. It's just producing unneeded electricity. That's a big problem with Bitcoin's proof of work, people say. So to switch over and make it more economical and also more secure, theoretically, they're switching over to proof of stake. Proof of stake is where you have a group of people and all of them have a certain amount of ether, and if you have like over 1,500 ether, or it'll scale up and down, you get to be a validator, and you get to take turns validating blocks and getting the transaction fees and getting that stamp of approval. So you have to have ether to make ether, but there is a rotation period, so you can't be a validator forever. You have to swap out with other validators. So there's a ton of things that could go wrong with a proof of stake system, but Vitalik and Vlad Zamfir and a few other people are working really, really hard on it, and it's a very hard computational problem. And then secondly, with the scaling and the sharding, how I understand it is, you know, a blockchain is this big single thing, and like you were talking about division of labor, what you do is you separate it so that they're on their own little worlds, like each of the, like a few nodes here is in their world, a few nodes here in another world, and they're getting sent transactions, and they're dealing with their state over there, and then eventually, every once in a while, they're all coming together and comparing state and saying, all right, are we all on the same page? Great, it's good. And because of that division of labor, now not everyone on the blockchain has to validate every single thing. Now it's divided so that sections of it validate different parts of it. That's my understanding of sharding. It's probably a little bit wrong and a lot more complicated than that, but Vitalik wrote a good blog post on it. So if you go to blog.ethereum.org, it has a lot more information on that.
And their theoretical limits for scalability there was...
Oh yeah, like hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands per second transaction. So this is greater than Visa, MasterCard is doing right now, but it's essentially running this actual true computer with that protocol set up. And I like that Vlad and Vitalik, this is a side note, I like that they disagree sometimes. If you ever read their like stuff back and forth, they actually disagree. This is good, right? you want to run your ideas through a gauntlet and prove it to the other smart person in the room that this stuff works.
I want to know, like you said, if I put a DApp on blockchain, then someone can go and decompile it and check what it is, right? What if there is an IP in that? I don't want it to be shared with everyone. Can I encrypt it? Can I make sure that...
This is where, marketing and he who publishes first wins, right? You still have to get the users to go use that application, but you're absolutely right. Your application can be decompiled, copied, modified, and used in someone else's application.
Do you mean like security though, like how to hide things in the blockchain? Like can you hide a secret?
Or copyright. Like intellectual property.
Suppose I come up with a contract which is used maybe by 1,000 people and it is used by 10,000 next day. And you can go and decompile and put that DApp right again in a blockchain.
Yeah, so DApps are compiled down to bytecode, and then that bytecode is hard to just by itself decompile. You usually have to have the smart contract code along with it, or at least the application binary interface, which is basically another part of the code that's obtained from the main code. So there are ways to do it, but it's not like immediately when I publish. If I keep the code to myself, someone can't just go in and just immediately know what I'm doing. They have to decompile it, and it takes some work. You have to have certain pieces of information.
Yeah, but it is possible.
It is possible.
Yeah.
You shouldn't ever consider anything that you put on the blockchain private.
I'll take BTC Relay, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So BTC Relay, you could decompile, if with some wherewithal and a little bit of effort, you could decompile BTC Relay's source code, right? Just because you made BTC Relay 2 doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to start trusting you and using your application, right? Because BTC Relay got approved, got audited, and says, yes, this is a good application for you to send your Bitcoin to, and you will reliably get the market rate in Ethereum back and vice versa.
Earlier you were saying that ETH Embedded was a competitor to Slockit, and they have responded on the chat and said, a competitor, we prefer to collaborate. So
Yeah.
So Slockit wants to collaborate with ETH Embedded, possibly in the future.
Okay, cool.
Real-time clarification.
Man, I'm a little bit starstruck right now. Just that you this is right.
I hear you.
Great. Okay. So the test. Last step. I have the JavaScript file. Mocha is the framework with which we're using to test. This is actually going to test against the contract on the blockchain. My JavaScript file called the test, called the different functions within the test, and it looks like I passed all 3 tests within my test script here. So good test-driven development. I've deployed it. I've tested it against my stuff, and this is essentially all the different framework we have for writing an Ethereum DApp. Any other questions before I hand it over to Hudson? All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
What I'm going to do is pull up the slide deck.
I'll put all this Cliff Notes here online.
Yep.
But again, I'll also post a link to Consensus's Truffle
Nice.
to their tutorial as well. Yes, sir. No. Definitely better than the blink.
Hey, can you make sure the camera's centered? I think it's good. If you can see me, then we're good.
Yeah.
All right,
You're all set. I got you and the monitor.
All right, great. So, plug this one in. And what's going to happen is that when this pops up, I'm going to have a bunch of different chat clients pop up all at once because I communicate too much, is what my computer's trying to tell me. I don't want to log into work.
Well, I mean, it's like,
It's like so accessible. You know, just like,
well,
like you said,
keep that.
why did you
Yeah. Is there a place I can go look at docs? You should make that. You can make it
It's the same.
Exactly. You know, we're just, that's the problem. There's too much of it.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is that the scope is so broad, until you have a anchor compared to, oh, well, I can vary, make a variation of that, or this, you know what I mean? Like,
I took myself one year. That's what I was trying to study. Trying to understand, like, which I'm really glad I did. But now you can run more excited. That's
Yeah.
I can edit what's that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Slack channel, you said?
Yeah.
We don't have one yet, but I think I'm going to put one on ETH Champs, which I'm going to be talking about here. All right, awesome. So, it's not March 3rd, but this is the second meetup. So, I got part of that right.
I like the logo.
It's the third meetup.
Third meetup. Oh, yeah, because 0.
Yes.
Well, no, it's meetup number 2, but it's the third meetup.
Yes.
Because 0 and 2. All right. So, just if this is your first time here, welcome. Thanks so much for coming. We didn't do this at the first because we had a special guest, but basically, just to explain who we are, we want to spread the word of Ethereum, educate people on it, show how exciting and cool it is, and just get some like-minded people together about it. So, this is things that have occurred since the last meeting. So, top left, we have the logo for Digix. What they have, they did a crowd sale that I believe garnered $5.5 million. And what they were selling was a token in their crowd sale for their distributed autonomous organization. So Digix is a company that ties gold bars to their own Ethereum sub-token. So they have this Digix gold token, and each gold token is equal to a gold bar, like an ounce or something like that. And they have certificates of authenticity and all this other stuff, and they have this vault that's just full of gold, and then they pretty much put gold on the blockchain by assigning a value for the gold to one of their Digix tokens. or Digix Gold tokens. It's actually the difference, because when they had their crowd sale, this crowd sale is for their company to start this, I think it's to deal with an exchange or to pretty much just start up their company. They needed some funding. So they said, we're going to give you shares of our company in this distributed autonomous organization for Ether. So they raised $5.5 million, which was the max they were set to do, and entirely in Ether, and then they shut it off. So they're one of the most successful Ethereum crowd sales yet, besides Augur, I think, for the ones I can think
Augur's
of.
4.5 million.
Yeah, Augur was 4.5 million, so they beat Augur's crowd sale record.
So wait, you said it was 1 gold bar or 1 ounce of gold was it?
Or I said gold bar. I didn't know if it was gold bar or ounce of gold. Yeah.
So, so it should add 14 hours and
Yeah.
something like under 700 buyers.
14 hours under 700 buyers. Yep, that is true. I forgot that. That is impressive. In fact, people were angry. They were like, I wanted to participate, but I had to go to work, and then I got home, and I was talking to my wife and got distracted, and then I missed the crowd sale. Like, there was a ton of people posting about that on the forum. So something else that happened, we talked about this with Taylor earlier, is the Homestead release. The Ethereum Homestead release went out great. They had a hard fork, which means that at a certain predetermined block in the blockchain, they switched up their protocol, their underlying software layer, and so all of the clients on Ethereum had to all sync up at the same time with it.
Why is that significant as opposed to Bitcoin blockchain?
Because Bitcoin can't get their crap together. So Bitcoin.
You are Calvin.
Say what? Sorry, Bitcoin. No. The thing is, there's a lot that has to go into coordinating all that, so it's really momentous that they were able to get all the developers together across all the different clients across their entire ecosystem to all agree on changes to the ecosystem, implement them, test them, and then for it to come off successfully. If they were to do that with Bitcoin today, it would be chaos.
So
Just
you think Bitcoin is a victim of its own size in this way?
Yes, it's a victim of its own size, and depending on who you ask, a victim of the people who are now in charge of the development of Bitcoin. Yeah, so it just depends.
So what happens if Ethereum grow as much as Bitcoin?
So hopefully by then they're going to solve the problem that Bitcoin has been having with its growing pains, and so far they've been doing a pretty good job of keeping consensus. They do have a improvement proposal protocol called EIPs, Ethereum Improvement Proposals, where you can go and anyone from anywhere can submit their proposal and have it debated to be put in the network. Now Bitcoin has that too, but theirs is a lot more politicized. This one, it's less politicized, so really it's just going to be a group community effort of keeping it not political and just for the technology and for the good of the community. So hopefully it'll work out if Ethereum gets as big as we think it will. So on the far right, this is the announcement for the Blockchain Labs Ethereum Foundation co-running event that's DevCon 2 and the second Global Blockchain Summit. It's going to be in Shanghai, China, September 19th through 24th, and then I put in under there, DevCon 2 is going to be the first 3 days, demo day is day 4, and the second Global Blockchain Summit is days 5 and 6. That's so that people with different interests, like if you're a DApp developer and you don't really want to hang around all the businessy people, you might want to just go to the first 3 days and maybe demo day. But if you're in the business side of things, maybe you don't care too much about what Ethereum's doing particularly, so you'll skip DevCon 2, but you'll go to demo day and then the blockchain summit with a lot of the businesses. And so that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from the press release. Don't, take that at fact, but that's kind of why I think they divided it into different parts. It's going to be at Hyatt on the Bund. So yeah, I'm going to Shanghai. Hope to see someone there. Yeah, you're going too, aren't you, James?
Can we get some Dallas Ethereum t-shirts?
We should do that. Yeah, let's do that and wear them there. That'd be a good idea. I'll get on that with you.
All right.
Cool. All right, so the last thing, and this is really exciting, Ethereum Champions has started. Ethereum Champions is that gap that we're trying to fill within Ethereum to get groups of volunteers together to start up initiatives. So for instance, everyone got on there and there's been this troll who's been going on Wikipedia and consistently edits our Wikipedia page. So we're trying to get a group of people together to help figure out how to solve that, either bring it up with the Wikipedia staff. There's another initiative going down to do more tutorials, to have a centralized place for tutorials. There's another There's another initiative to start a DAO within Ethereum Champions. So it's pretty much the volunteer core or the street team for Ethereum community. And I'm the leader of that. And we have a website, ethchamps.org. And that has a sign-up page where you put in your email and you're invited to our Slack channel. Slack is a software that you use to chat with people. It's just like Skype or anything like that, but it's subdivided into channels. So we have a lot of cool people on there. Like, I think we have over 175 people on there now. So it's getting real big. And we just got the logo made. We had someone, Nick, on our Slack channel volunteered to make logos, and he did an amazing job. So if you're interested in volunteering, starting an initiative, and we may even start, I think that's where I'm going to put the Dallas Ethereum page. Slack channel is on there. Just because it's already there, we can just hit add and it starts it. So if you want to be involved in the Ethereum Dallas Slack channel, go ahead and go to ethchamps.org, put in your email, and you'll get an invite in the next day or two to get added to the chat.
Does this group have a logo? Because you could turn that one into a nifty.
Oh no, that is the logo.
No, for Dallas.
Oh, for
Ethereum
Dallas?
group?
Oh yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, we're gonna turn this into a T-shirt, hopefully.
And Hudson made that, by the way. It's pretty good, right?
I am not usually a graphic designer, but I tried.
That's awesome.
And actually, that's the old logo. I just showed the new logo has better font. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Dallas Ethereum logos. Yeah, this is the new one. It has like lowercase in it. I like it a little bit better. Looks like that. So now that that's done, that's pretty much the last announcement there. Thanks everybody so much for coming. We can hang around and chat. It's pretty informal, and we'll try to get some T-shirts together and see who's interested.
One last thing. Today is National Beer Day for the United States, so if anyone wants to go and be patriotic afterwards.
Beer or beard?
Well, we can do both.
Okay. I thought you said beard at first, but now I'm thinking beer. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Also, I got Meetup every Friday at Quarter Bar down in Uptown, 11:30 to 1, called Proof of Lunch. Bitcoin, blockchain, Meetup. Love it all. Pretty casual. Stop by Berkeley if you can, but I'll be there every Friday. So
You should post that in the comments too on the Meetup group. Maybe some more people there.
Yeah, definitely.
thanks.
And I think we got.